Hi, if you're new here, my name is Sarah and I make videos about selling and styling a handmade wardrobe. I've been doing a series where I've been sharing the patterns that I would sew again, and I realized that it would actually be really helpful if I also shared the patterns that I have made in the past but would not sew again. I find that having negative information can be just as useful as the positive information. I'm not saying that any of these are bad patterns, just that they didn't work for me, and I'll give the reasons why, and then you can make your own judgments about whether or not they will work for you. So let's just get into the knit top patterns that I would not make again. The first one is the French Navy Stellantis. I sewed it one time and it is a free pattern. I do really like the shirt that I have. It's a basic white t-shirt and I do wear it quite frequently. But the main reason that I wouldn't sew this one again is because there are other t-shirt patterns that I just prefer to this one. My current favorite boxy t-shirt pattern is the True Bias Jessie, and so I would definitely pick that one over this one. For me, the Stellantis that I made doesn't quite fit me right, and I don't really like the curved hem on it. It's just a personal preference. So I do wear the version that I have, but I just don't really feel the need to make any more. The second pattern is the Friday Pattern Company Adrian blouse. I know that so many people in the sewing community love this blouse, but when I made it, I just did not like it on me. For one thing, their block doesn't fit me very well. There was a ton of extra space kind of in the middle of the chest and it would gape a lot. And it also had a pretty dramatic hip curve and I wasn't filling it out. Now those are things that I could fix if I wanted to go back and really make a version that fits me well, but I really just did not like the style on me. The really large puffy sleeves just didn't look right on me. I think it's just not my style. And so I ended up actually giving that shirt to a friend of mine. I know that the style suits so many different body types, but I just didn't really like the style on my particular body, and so I wouldn't make it again. Next up is the Green Style Creations Bali shirt. I made one version of this and I no longer have it in my wardrobe. Part of the reason why I didn't like it was actually the fabric. It was a crepe jersey and I just didn't really like the feel of it. But I also just didn't like the style on me. I think that just looking at the line drawings and then looking at other people wearing it, I think that it's a very cute style, but I just did not like it on me. And there's different ways that you can adjust it. It has a drawstring up the front and you can pull it so it's more ruched, or you can leave it more long. And I tried wearing it both ways and I just don't like the way that it looks on me. And I was never really able to style it in a way that I thought looked good. And so I ended up getting rid of that top. And I don't think that I would go back and make another one, even though there are a ton of different versions that you can do. You can make versions with sleeves, and I think there's some other options. But for me, I just didn't think it was worth revisiting that particular pattern. The next one is the Jennifer Lauren handmade Bronte top. Now this one has nothing to do with the look of the pattern. I actually really like the top and the way that it looks, and I like wearing the one that I have. But I did find it really annoying to construct. It has these buttons on the front, and although they're sewn in place, they're not functional buttons. They do kind of serve a functional purpose because they hold the different pieces of fabric together. And so getting the placement of the buttons right is really important. Otherwise it's going to pull in weird ways. And so I had a really hard time getting those buttons placed just right. And just the annoyance of that made me not want to make it again. I've also made the Jolie Lab Mallow tee, and that one is similar. It also has buttons on the shoulder, but they are purely decorative. They don't serve any kind of functional purpose. And it was just so much easier to construct that one, and it does look kind of similar. So I don't really feel the need to go back to the Bronte, but I do really like the top that I have, and I will continue to wear it. This next one just turned out to not be my style. It was the Love Notions Laundry Day tee. It was a free pattern. I'm not sure if it still is, but I've only sewn it one time. And I never even took a modeled photo in it because immediately after I made it, I was like, oh no, I don't like this. The thing that I don't like about it is that it's very fitted up top, but has a swingy bottom, and I just do not like styles like that on me personally. So I ended up converting the top that I made into a workout top, which I actually still wear today, so it gets a lot of use. But in terms of my regular style, it's just not me, so I've never wanted to make that one again. Next up is the Seamwork Aberdeen. Now this is probably the only one on the list that I would actually say that is a bad pattern. I made a whole review about how I do not like this pattern. And I think in the review, I was trying to be a little bit kind and say that the pattern wasn't at fault. But in retrospect, I kind of think that it is, because my thing about that particular top is that the top that I sewed did not look anything like the pattern cover. And there were just tons of details about it that I didn't like. I didn't like how high the V-neck was. I didn't like the sleeve length. I also really didn't like the fabric that I made it out of, which is not the fault of the pattern. I don't think I ever wore that top after taking photos of it. I just got rid of it, and I definitely do not want to sew that pattern again. So like I said, if you want to hear more details, I will link that video up in the cards in case you want to check it out, but I definitely would not recommend the Aberdeen. The next knit top that I would not sew again is the Sewaholic Renfrew top. I've actually made quite a few versions of this, although it was many, many years ago. This was one of the first indie patterns that I purchased, and at the time there just wasn't a whole lot of choice, and so I used that top pattern. It has a nice variety of different t-shirts, and so I made quite a few versions. I wore them out, but the reason I would not make it again is because Sewaholic, who I believe is not producing any new patterns anymore, but the company drafts for pear-shaped bodies, and I am not a pear-shape. Again, I think that I bought it because it was one of the only t-shirt patterns with variety that was available at the time. So because there are so many other choices now, and I have t-shirt patterns that I absolutely love, revisit my first video on tops if you want to know which ones those are. But it just doesn't make sense to keep using a pattern that's not really meant for me, and so I haven't made that one in years, and I'm sure that I never will again. Next up is the Itch to Stitch llama sweatshirt. I made one version of this with the cowl neck, and I wore it out. I wore it until the fabric got really pilly and it just didn't look nice anymore, and so I did end up getting rid of it, but I kept it for quite a few years. I do think it's a really interesting design, but it's just not really my style. It's more of a tunic length, and it has kind of almost like princess seam lines that makes it a little bit more fitted through the body. And when I'm wearing a sweatshirt, I just prefer something that's more oversized and more cropped. Like, that's just my current style. The llama just isn't really my preference for loungewear, so I don't think that I would make that pattern again, but I do think that it was a nice design. And if you like that sort of style, I think that it is a good pattern. It's just not really for me. These next few patterns, I think, are about me trying out different styles because I like variety and I like to try new things, but sometimes they don't always work out. So this next one is the Made for Mermaids Florence top. It's a one shoulder tank and it's cropped. And I absolutely hated that top, and I think I only wore it like twice before I finally got rid of it. I just did not like the one shoulder design. I didn't like that it was cropped. I think the two of those things combined was maybe just a little bit too revealing for my taste. I didn't feel comfortable wearing it. I think that it looks really fabulous in the pattern cover photo and other people look great wearing it, but I just did not like that top at all, so I wouldn't make that one again. The next one is the Sewing Machine Hugo. Now, contrary to the last one, I actually really loved the way that this top looked. I think that the crossover kind of halter neck looks really nice on me, and it's definitely different and fresh. But the problem with this top is that I felt like it was choking me whenever I wore it. It was just so incredibly uncomfortable. I think I only wore that one maybe 2 or 3 times as well. And I just loved the way that it looked, but it was so uncomfortable that I wouldn't make that one again. This next one is the Stay Stitch Pattern Company Lola tank. Now I have 2 versions of this, one in white and one in black, and I plan to keep the ones that I have and continue to wear them. But the issue with this one and why I wouldn't sew it again is because I feel like it was a very trendy pattern, like it was one of those flash in the pan things that is quite honestly out of style already. So just because it's not on trend anymore, I don't feel like I need to get rid of the ones that I already have, but I also don't feel like I need to make any more. I do like both the black and the white version, and I think that they're nice basics and they're a little bit different than just a basic tank top. So like I said, I will continue to keep those and wear them, but it definitely made me reconsider whether I should be making things that are so incredibly trendy that they're going to be out before you know it, and is it really worth my time to be sewing things like that? The last knit top pattern is another Stay Stitch Pattern Company. It's the Stay Stitch Pattern Company Addington top, and I just made this one out of a hot pink jersey. And I really love that top. I actually still have not had a chance to wear it yet because it hasn't been warm enough. But this one I think is a very distinct design, and I just don't think that I need multiples. I do like that it's unique. I do think that it's really pretty. I am slightly worried that it's too trendy, but at least I just have the one version this time. But it's just not one of those tops that I feel like it's a basic that I can make over and over again. Just having that one unique version is good enough for me. And especially because it's in a bright pink, I think it's kind of special, and so I don't really feel like I need more. And before we move on to the woven tops, if you are enjoying this so far and feel like you're getting some value out of it, I would really appreciate it if you would give me a thumbs up, and please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for your support. Now let's chat about some woven tops. The first one that I would not sew again is the Fiber Mood Belle. I sewed this one time out of a pink double gauze, and I no longer have this top in my wardrobe. One of the things I didn't like about it was the color, and so that's obviously not the fault of the pattern, but that is one reason why I don't have that top anymore. The main reason why I wouldn't sew it again is partly because the armholes are really low and they kind of expose your bra if you're not careful, and also just the ruffly style, it just wasn't really my taste. I think it's going to be kind of a theme as we go down this woven list that I think really frilly over the top ruffles and flounces maybe just aren't me. I mean, I like them every once in a while in moderation, but when that's the whole design feature of the garment, I tend not to like it, and I think this was one of those. Every time I tried to wear the top, it just felt uncomfortable. It just didn't feel like my style. So I did end up getting rid of that one, and I wouldn't sew another one. Next up on the list is the Fiber Mood Bonnie shirt. I no longer have this one in my wardrobe either, and I only made one. Another problem was the color, which again, not the fault of the pattern. This has been several years ago that I made that top, so they may have fixed it since then, but at least when I made the top, there was an error on the sleeve instructions. It has pleats in the sleeve, and it took me forever to figure out how they were supposed to look because the instructions didn't match the modeled photos. So just remembering that there was an error, I don't really think I want to go back and sew that pattern again. And also style-wise, I just feel like it's a little bit boring maybe. And I have other blouses that are actually quite similar in style, like the assembly line puff shirt pattern. I've made that one a couple times and it looks pretty similar to the Bonnie. So if I wanted to sew another top similar to that, I would probably just go back to the puff shirt and skip this one. The next one is another Friday Pattern Company. It's the square neck top. I've actually made two versions of this. I made one in knit and one in woven, and I don't have either one of those in my wardrobe anymore. This is basically the same problem that I had with the Adrian blouse. The block just doesn't fit me well. I think you can kind of see in the photos how bunchy it is in the middle. And I'm really pretty sad about the eyelet one because I took a lot of time to do like bound seams, and I was really careful with the placement of the eyelet so that it would be nice and centered. I think that it looks nice, but it just didn't fit well. It wasn't comfortable. And I do like the look of the square neck, but I think if I wanted to make a similar top in the future, I would probably just try to adapt a boxy top that I already have that fits me better, and then maybe change up the neckline to be more square rather than trying to use this pattern and make it fit me. Next up is the Sew Over It Ravello top. This is another really old one. I haven't had this in my wardrobe for years. A big part of why this one was a fail was the fabric choice. I used a really cheap Joanne rayon that I bought. It was very, very flimsy, and it was a bad fabric. But in addition to that, I just did not like the grown-on sleeve and how it looked on me. It just didn't look right. And the fact that it was also cropped in a wrap top, it just made it a little bit fussy to, like, when you put it on, get everything in place so that nothing's showing. And I just didn't enjoy wearing it, and I really hated the way that the sleeves look on me. So I would not reach for that pattern again. I think that it looks great on other people. It's just one that didn't work for me. The next top that I wouldn't sew again is Simplicity 9749. I actually really like the way that my version turned out in the end. It was a little bit big at first, but then it shrank in the wash, and that actually worked out in my favor to where it fits me pretty well now. But the thing about this top is that similar to the Addington, it's so distinct of a style, I don't feel like I need multiples. There are a few different views in the pattern, like you can skip the little peekaboo in the center if you want. And I think maybe there's a version that doesn't have shirring in the back, but it's still like a billowy sleeve top with a sweetheart neck, and how many of those do I actually need? So I think the one version that I made is enough for me. I don't regret sewing that. I actually really like wearing it, but I just don't want to make another one. The next top is the Victory Patterns Ava. Now, I bought this pattern so many years ago in a sale, and then it was in my stash for a really long time. And I think the reason that I finally sewed it up was because I felt guilty that I had bought it and not made it. But the thing about this one is that it's just not my style. It has a big peplum, and with the sheer lace and the sweetheart neck, it's very like romantic and frilly looking, and it is just not my style. I did not like wearing it. I think I only wore it like once or twice. And it's another one that, if I'm gonna be honest, I feel like the silhouette is pretty dated at this point. So that top I also ended up giving to my friend, the same friend who took the Adrian. And hopefully she's loving it, or maybe she's passed it on to someone else, I don't know. But I'm just glad that it's not in my wardrobe anymore. It's really one that I never should have made in the first place. So I definitely will not be making that mistake again. Like, I'm done with that pattern. I'm not gonna go back to it. The next top that I wouldn't repeat is the Fiber Mood Honey. There were a lot of details about this pattern that I just did not like. First of all, again, with the color, the pastels just do not work for me. I've learned my lesson since that point. But aside from that, the actual design details that just didn't work for me. The main thing that I hated about this one was the sleeve ties. Like they were kind of like 3/4 length sleeves, and then those ties would just get in the way all the time, and they were super annoying. I absolutely hated them. The top itself was quite cropped, and so it didn't want to stay tucked in, and I found that really annoying. And again, with the ruffle details, like I think that it looks nice on paper, and every once in a while I can do with a ruffle now and then, but it's just not really my primary style, so I did not enjoy wearing it. I think the fabric that I chose was also pretty cheap. I think it was another Joanne rayon. But really the main thing I hated about this top was the sleeve ties, so for that reason alone, I don't think that I would ever go back to this pattern. I know it was really popular for a while and lots of people made really cute versions. That's probably what made me want to make it in the first place. But in the end, it was just not a top pattern that was meant for me. Next up is the McCall's 8180. This is another one that I actually really like it, but I only need one. Wearing a top with such an enormous ruffly collar was definitely a departure for me, but I think that's what I like about it. It definitely pushes me out of my comfort zone. Whenever I'm feeling a little bit stuck in my style or that I'm being repetitive, I can pull out that blouse and wear it and just kind of almost feel totally transformed. So I do enjoy that blouse as kind of a palette cleanser, but it's not my typical style, and therefore I just don't feel like I need multiples. And just to note, that's another top that's a little bit too short, similar to the honey. If I ever did want to make it again, I would definitely lengthen it a couple of inches so that I could more easily tuck it in. But I really don't see myself making the pattern another time, but just a note in case you were interested in it, I would definitely consider lengthening it. The next one is a pattern that there's nothing wrong with it, but it's not very exciting. It's the Vicky So's Kaya shirt. So I like the shirt that I made. I think that it's constructed well. I like the pattern, but it's just a basic oversized shirt pattern, and I have so many oversized shirt patterns in my stash that I would either make a new one in order to try something different, or I would go back to my favorite oversized shirt, which is the Helen's Closet Cameron shirt. I just didn't like this particular pattern enough to want to go back and sew it again, but there's technically nothing wrong with it. It's one of those that's just okay, and I like the shirt that I have and I will continue to wear it, but I really think that I would reach for a different pattern if I just wanted to make another button-up shirt that's a little bit oversized. The next one is the Fiber Mood Lola top. Here we go with the ruffles again. I actually think that this looks really cute, but I did find it really annoying because it has kind of an open back section and it's a little bit too low, and so my bra would show. And the particular top that I made was out of like a lyocell chambray, and unfortunately it frayed quite a bit, and so the seams were starting to fall apart. So that's why I didn't hold on to that one. And if I'm going to be honest, it was a pain in the neck to iron. Because it was a rayon or a lyocell, it did wrinkle quite easily, and then trying to iron that ruffle was really very challenging. So this is another one that I thought looked really cute, but it was just a little bit too fussy to deal with, and I would not want to wear that top again, so there's no point in making it. Now this next one that we're going to end on might be kind of a surprise. The final top that I would not sew again is the True Bias Ogden. Now I have sewn, I think, 6 versions of this top, so why wouldn't I sew it again? So this pattern was another one that it was one of the earliest indie patterns that I ever purchased. And I obviously liked it enough to make it multiple times. But the thing about it is that it never fit me quite well. Like something about like right under the arms, it was always really tight there. And I also was not a big fan of the half lining because depending on what fabric I used, you could see the half lining through the shirt if I made it out of something that was a little bit lighter in color. And I now have an alternative. I made the I Am Patterns Valerie top, which looks very similar, but the block just fits me a lot better, and it has a more normal facing, like what you're used to, that's just a little bit skinny, rather than that half lining. And I really just prefer the Valerie now to the Ogden, to the point where I don't see the need for me to ever make the Ogden again. But I do still have several versions of the Ogden in my closet, and I will continue to wear those. It's just a matter of finding a pattern that I liked a little bit better than this one. So those are the 23 top patterns that I would not sew again. Let me know in the comments if any of those are your favorite patterns. I always think it's so interesting when a pattern works so well for someone but not so well for someone else. We're all so different and have different experiences. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.